Chapter 211. The trial between the cavalry, including Duke Paleta, and the Apeto ducal house ended in defeat for the Apeto, just as many had predicted. However, the resulting storm that it stirred was beyond anyone's expectations. The Apeto house, having braced for merely a blow to their pride if they were to lose, was slapped with an astronomical fine and the confiscation of about one-third of their official assets. Dozens of involved parties were sentenced to exile or imprisonment, having been judged guilty. Even those who were seen as indirect accomplices received relatively light punishments, their numbers reaching nearly hundreds. The Duke of Apeto naturally resisted these penalties, but the onslaught from Emperor Kaluza and Kishir was as if they had anticipated every possible move. As the Duke hesitated, unsure whether he should swallow his pride and seek help from other ducal houses, those siding with the Emperor engaged in conversation with those members and followers of the House of Apeto. Thanks to the fiery temperament that ran in their family, there were few in the Apeto house who possessed deep loyalty to begin with. Those who followed out of lust for money or fear willingly accepted to offer to lighten their own charges in exchange for testifying against the crimes of the Apeto. While one traitor could be easily dealt with, it became impossible to handle when dozens, then hundreds began to speak out. Thus, the massive limbs of the Apeto house were swiftly severed, one by one, starting from the edges. By the time the Duke of Apeto came to his senses, everything was already over. On the surface, it seemed like the Duke and the key members of his family had escaped punishment, but there were no more than a torso left without limbs. Furthermore, the situation worsened when evidence emerged showing that the Duke, who had been consistently asserting his innocence, had in fact been supporting Beltrade directly. The Duke's escape from punishment, despite being responsible for his house, attracted a torrent of criticism and resentment. The numerous rumors related to Beltrade's records exposed during an initial trial also humiliated the Apeto house. It was unbearable for those who held reputation, honor, and lineage above all else. Another incident occurred amid such circumstances. An assassin infiltrated the Crown Prince's palace, which had been quiet for some time, leaving behind a suspicion that the true killer of Lenorchan Apeto had been found. Fortunately, the Crown Prince was unharmed, but was wounded by a poison-coated dagger and was advised to rest for some time. The assassin committed suicide immediately upon being captured, leaving no clue as to who had hired him. However, the flower symbol engraved on a badge in his possession, presumably intended to be left behind had the mission succeeded, became the topic of discussion among the populace. The name of the flower was Dulacrul, a symbol of sorrow traditionally placed on a child's grave by grieving parents in the empire. Duke Apeto claimed he did not order the act, but no one believed him. Duke Diarca, despite his nickname of the Old Raccoon, sent a formal letter of protest to Duke Apeto in an anger that seemed uncharacteristic of him. Whether this was the cause was unclear, but soon after, Duke Apeto collapsed, stricken by a disease he thought he had overcome in his youth. Unable to perform his duties as the pillar of the family, all his powers were transferred to his only remaining successor, the first Prince Ashes. Ashes, having grasped the power he had long desired, promptly embarked on a ruthless campaign to rid his faction of those who had rebelled against his father. Those who had meticulously predicted his weak constitution would render him incapable of leading the house began to fall one by one, largely due to the disgrace they had brought upon the family in such a short span of time. Most people who were unaware of the full situation praised the fact that Ashes, the sole heir who had faithfully retained his position throughout the family scandals, had assumed the leadership of the house, stating it was indeed a fortunate event. All the while, Yudhirael watched the unfolding changes from a step behind, his keen gaze concealed as he silently observed. Yudhir climbed to the fifth floor and knocked on the commander's office door. Shortly thereafter, the door opened, revealing Nathan Zuckerman's face. The tall man with blonde hair, who was unusually present, was nowhere to be seen inside the office. With a practiced hand, Yudhir picked up the pile of letters strewn across the desk and spoke. Has the commander not risen yet today? Yes. In the short period when the world was rapidly changing without a moment's rest, Kishir also reached the cycle as he had previously predicted. He was often actively leading and encouraging those involved until the trial of the Apetto family was nearly concluded. However, for the past few days, he was rarely seen outside. Back then, he would at least be up early in the office. Today marked the third day since it became increasingly hard to catch a glimpse of him even in his office. I wonder if he's still here. What does it feel like to forcibly expel the overpowering energy within your body? Despite hearing about it, he couldn't easily imagine it because he had never experienced it himself. Kishir hadn't sought out either, so he had refrained from speaking, but at this point he was slightly worried. The once busy office, always filled with a man who seemed to be constantly working, now appeared deceptively vacant, with only the ever-burning stove serving as a steady source of light. After a fleeting glance at the divine sword ore placed on the stove, Yudhir sat down on a small desk near the commander's table and began his work. Ever since the festival period and the business holiday due to the manifestation has ended, he had been fully committed to the task of sorting letters. Reading all the letters that had arrived for Kishir, categorizing them, and picking out the most urgent ones was not a difficult task, but it was rather time consuming. Most of them are invitations today. However, thanks to the enhanced reputation of the cavalry, there had been no rude requests since the festival to send an awakener to be used as a clown or to arrange a meeting with a young and beautiful awakener for some pointless purpose. Yudhir quickly went through all the letters, setting aside those that were not party invitations or unilateral love letters to Kishir. This alone reduced the pile by about 80%. Just as he was about to start reading the remaining letters in earnest, Nathan Zuckerman, who had disappeared into the office earlier, returned with a cup of tea and set it beside him. Accompanying the tea was a mountainous assortment of chocolates. Please help yourself. Yudhir lifted his gaze from the mountain of chocolate, focusing on Nathan. Nathan had provided him with 5 slices of cake just yesterday, and the day before he presented cookies of various hues smeared with jam. No matter how many times Yudhir told him that it was unnecessary, Nathan's terse reply was always, "I'm just following orders." Did the commander order you to give these to me? Yes. Seeing Nathan's commitment to following orders daily, Yudhir could only find the situation peculiar. It was as if he was going through this routine for the first time, and he wasn't sure whether it seemed normal to Kishir as well. Yudhir glanced at Nathan, wondering if he had anything else to say about Kishir, but Nathan's expression was as impassive as ever. Please wait a moment. Eventually, Yudhir called out to Nathan just before he turned and disappeared. It seems too much for me to eat alone. Would you care to join me? I thought the quantity was just enough for you to finish. Nathan's gaze drifted towards the pile of chocolates. Yudhir recalled the dessert plate that Nathan had silently emptied in the past, and after a moment of silence, he spoke again. There is something I would like to ask. Understood. Finally, Nathan took a seat across from him. He did not touch the tea or chocolate, instead maintaining a knightly posture and gazing at Yudhir. Do you have any questions? When Commander's cycle was approaching and I asked if there was anything else I needed to be mindful of, you told me there was nothing to worry about. That conversation occurred when Yidhir was restarting his duty of sorting through the correspondence. Nathan had said that it was a routine that was already familiar to Kishir and him, and that there was no need for others to be overly cautious. Yes. So, is this also normal? If you are referring to being excessively sleepy and distancing yourself from others, yes, it's quite common. Becoming excessively sleepy and distancing oneself. Yidhir digested this piece of information and nodded. I see, understood. If it was something that had already occurred in the past, then there was no need to worry excessively. Yidhir realized this was just the first time in this lifetime he was experiencing such a situation. In his past life, he had grown accustomed to Kishir disappearing for days at a time without a trace. Kishir had already explained and warned him about the impending cycle, not just to Yidhir, but everyone around him. If everyone was being distanced, there was no particular need to worry. Just as he was lost in his thoughts, Nathan unexpectedly asked a question. Are you worried? Of course I'm worried. I have heard about it, but this is my first time experiencing it. If something were to happen to Kishir, it would also impact the new future chosen by Yudhir El. Kishir's existence itself was synonymous with the future. Upon hearing Yudhir's reply, Nathan's lips pressed together firmly. That's surprising. It was a while before Yudhir turned his head towards Nathan, who had finally spoken. Nathan was looking at Yudhir, his eyes a mix of curiosity and some inexplicable emotion. Did you think I wasn't worried about the commander at all? To be honest, it seemed that way.